Welcome to MyShliach Story Hour Chassidim series.
So, Chevre, where did we leave off last time? The Gvir of the town asked the Shadchan to ask Reb Meir if he could make a shidduch with his daughter and the son of Reb Meir, the big Goyin, the Talmud Chacham, Reb Hillel. And Reb Meir said, I'll be masking to the shidduch on condition that the girl's father pays the chassan 20,000 rubles. Now, 20,000 rubles, that's crazy. That's like probably $1 bajillion today. I don't know. It was a lot of money. And so the Shadchan goes and delivers the message to the Gevir. What? Are you crazy? 20,000 rubles? Does this Reb Meir think that because I'm a rich man, he's going to take me for a ride and rob me blind? I'm not giving no $20,000 to Hillel. If he thinks he's going to get 20,000 rubles from me, he is mistaken. Never mind. Tell Reb Meir that I don't want the shidduch. If he's going to treat me that way and try to take my money, I'll find somebody else. I'll find a different Talmud Chacham from a different town. Preposterous. What kind of ridiculous idea is this? Thinks just because I have money, they're going to grab every penny that I have. Unbelievable, these people. However, the wife of the rich man didn't think so. She went to her husband and she said, please, my dear husband, what's so terrible? 20,000 rubles. It's not like you don't have the money. We'll give the money to our daughter. What's the problem if she has it? What's the money worth anyways if we can't use it for a simcha? After all, you're not going to find a chassan, a son-in-law, of such a darga, such a level as Reb Hillel. You know what? If you don't want to spend your money, that's fine. I'm going to take all the jewelry that I have and I'm going to sell it. And with that money, I'm going to give it to Reb Meir so that he will agree to the shidduch between his son Hillel and our daughter. What's our money worth anyways, if not to give it to our children? And so the rich man heard what his wife had to say and he was unable to argue with it. She made a good point, and Reb Meir, for his part, couldn't refuse the shidduch, and so they agreed to the shidduch. So they got married. They had a chasana. Like we said earlier, Reb Hillel was 12 years old by the time they got married, and he was known as the Chal Moed Yid until his bar mitzvah. Now, around the time of his chasana, or a little bit after, Reb Meir brought Reb Hillel, the chassid that we're discussing, Reb Hillel Paritcher, to his Rebbe. His Rebbe at this time was Reb Matale Chernobyl. His father, Reb Nachum, was the Rebbe that Reb Hillel saw when he was 2 years old, when he cried, fire, fire. Reb Nachum had since passed away, and now his son, Reb Matale Chernobyl, became the Rebbe. And Reb Hillel became a chassid of Reb Matale. However, by the age of 15, Reb Hillel began to hear about Tanya and Chassidus Chabad. And he started learning more about Chassidus Chabad. You see, the Mezritcher Magid had many, many Talmidim. And many of them became different Rebbes, and they all started their own Chassidic dynasty. We, Chassidim of the Alter Rebbe, are Chassidei Chabad. Chabad is Chochma Bina Das. That verstehen. You can't rely on the Rebbe. You have to do things yourself. You have to understand yourself. You have to do the Lachluchis yourself. It's not about the environment. It's not about the Avir being in the Rebbe's presence. That's also important, but you can't just rely on that. Masha'en came, the other Chassidim, they're Chassidus Chagas. Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes. It's more about the emotions. It's about the feelings. So you'll find other Chassidim that their whole Chassidus revolves around being by the Rebbe for Shalosh Shudas, singing a niggin, eating a geschmacke herring or gefilte fish, chapping shirayim from the Rebbe, and it's alles good and fine, but and they rely on the Rebbe, that the Rebbe is going to daven for them, and the Rebbe is going to learn from them. The main avodah is going to be done through the Rebbe. That's Chassidus Chagas. We are Chassidei Chabad, the Alter Rebbe, Mons and Tanya, that no, you can't rely on anybody else. You have to do it yourself. The Eibishter gave you kayach, and you have to use that kayach in order to make a dira b'tachtenim for the Eibishter. And the more Reb Hillel learned about Chassidus Chabad, the more interested he became in it. And now the Eltere Chernobyl Chassidim tried to convince him that this was not their derech. Don't follow Chassidus Chabad. We're Chagas Chassidim. We're Chernobyl Chassidim. They tried, they were successful a little bit, but then something happened. When Reb Hillel heard about the Alter Rebbe, and he heard that the Alter Rebbe was passing through a nearby town, Reb Hillel said, you know what? I'm taka at Chernobyl Chassid, but I want to see the Alter Rebbe. So, Reb Hillel made arrangements to try to meet the Alter Rebbe while the Alter Rebbe was passing through. However, as Hashgacha Pratis would have it, Reb Hillel was not able to meet the Alter Rebbe in person. For whatever reason, he wasn't able to make it inside the house where the Alter Rebbe was. I'm sure, probably because it was packed. But Reb Hillel was standing outside the house and was able to hear the way the Alter Rebbe chazed the Maimer. After that, he heard the explanation of the Maimer through another chassid, Reb Zalman Zezmer. That's a chassid we're going to discuss, hopefully, in a future podcast. After hearing the Maimer from the Alter Rebbe and the explanation of Chabad Chassidus, that's it. Reb Hillel Melisev, who later became known as Reb Hillel Paritcher, was sold. He was going to become a Chabad chassid. No matter what it takes, he was going to become a chassid of the Alter Rebbe. And at that point, Reb Hillel said he's going to make every effort to try to get a Yechidus, to try to meet the Alter Rebbe, albeit for just a few moments. However, every time he tried to meet the Alter Rebbe, it didn't work out. And he came, the Alter Rebbe left, or the Alter Rebbe came earlier or later. Whatever reason, whatever he did, he was not able to meet the Alter Rebbe. One time, he got some inside secret intelligence that the Alter Rebbe would be coming to a certain town and staying in a certain house. And so, Reb Hillel Paritcher managed to sneak into the house where the Alter Rebbe was staying, and even into the room where the Alter Rebbe was staying before the Alter Rebbe got there. And he hid under the couch. So this way, when the Alter Rebbe comes into the room, he'll be able to come out from his hiding place and meet the Alter Rebbe. He's been trying for so long to try to have a Yechidus or have a conversation with the Alter Rebbe. He wants to be a chassid of the Alter Rebbe, and for whatever reason, whatever he tried, it didn't work out. Now, finally, he's able to sneak into the house, into the room where the Alter Rebbe is going to be, and he prepares in his mind a question on Masechtes Erchin. Masechtes Erchin talks about upshots and about evaluating people and different values of things for karbanis, etc. And he wants to ask the Alter Rebbe a question. And he hid in the room secretly. Nobody should notice him. Nobody should schlep him out. And he's hiding under the couch. When the Alter Rebbe comes into the room, he'll ask the Alter Rebbe the question. And he waits there. I don't know if he was waiting there for a couple of hours or a couple of minutes. Finally, he hears a commotion outside. The Alter Rebbe has arrived at the house. And a few minutes later, he hears the front door of the house open. And he hears the footsteps walking towards the room. And his heart is pounding. It feels like his heart is going to pop out from his chest. He's so excited. He's so excited. He finally is going to have the opportunity to meet the Alter Rebbe. A few moments later, the door handle turns. The Alter Rebbe comes into the room. The door closes. And Reb Hillel composes himself and is about to climb out from behind his hiding place, from underneath the couch, and see the Alter Rebbe for the first time face to face. And all of a sudden, the Alter Rebbe begins to speak. And Reb Hillel freezes. He freezes. And he hears the Alter Rebbe say, when someone prepares a question in Erchin, in evaluations, to try to see how much something is worth, in order to evaluate, in order to see how much someone or something else is worth, he must first evaluate himself. Saying, before you're coming to check out to see if this is the right place for you, if this is the right Chassidus, if this is the right Rebbe, you first have to look within yourself. Reb Hillel heard those words. He couldn't believe it. I never met the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe doesn't even know that I'm here. But the Alter Rebbe has Ruach HaKodesh to know that there's someone in the room, I'm in the room, and this is what I'm thinking about, to ask the Alter Rebbe this question. And upon realizing that, Reb Hillel Paritcher fainted. And he remained in a state of faint underneath the couch in his hiding space. I don't know how long he was there for, but when he finally came to, when he finally woke up from his faint, because there was nobody around to bring a bucket of water to pour it on him and wake him up, so it had to come naturally. By the time Reb Hillel woke up and composed himself, you guessed it, Kinderlach, the Alter Rebbe had already moved on. Reb Hillel came so close to meeting the Alter Rebbe, but the Rebbe wanted that the Alter Rebbe and Reb Hillel should not meet, and so he fainted, and Reb Hillel was never zeicha to meet the Alter Rebbe, because the Alter Rebbe was nostalgic a half a year later while he was running away from Napoleon. However, even with this, his desire to become a Chabad Chassid and to learn Chassidus Chabad wasn't weakened, and he decided after the Alter Rebbe passed away, he's going to become a Chassid of the Mittler Rebbe. And so, Reb Hillel asked permission from his wife, and she gave him permission to travel to Lubavitch to be a Chassid of the Mittler Rebbe. However, Reb Meir, who is the father of Reb Hillel's wife, Reb Hillel's Shver, he didn't take it easy. He was horrified. He was a Chassid of Reb Matla Chernobyl. And Reb Hillel Paritcher was also a Chassid of Reb Matla up until that point. So Reb Hillel asked his wife permission if he can travel to Lubavitch and become a Chassid of the Mittler Rebbe. And she gave him permission. However, her father, the rich man, Reb Hillel Shver, he did not take it easy. I don't understand. How can you do such a thing? We are Chassidim of Reb Matla Chernobyl. Just because you decided to learn Tanya and hear about a Maimer from the Alter Rebbe, you're going to now throw everything aside and leave the Chassidus of your father and of yourself and of your father-in-law and of your wife. How could this be? Who gives you the right to abandon your heritage? You are a Chernobyl Chassid. You're not a Lubavitcher Chassid. You have to stay with us as Chassidim of Ramatla Chernobyl. Full of anguish and upsetness and hurt, the Reb Hillel Shver right away ran to their Rebbe, Reb Matla, to tell him about Reb Hillel's decision, hoping that the Rebbe, Reb Matla Chernobyl, was a big tzaddik, he would be able to convince his son-in-law, Reb Hillel Paritcher, to stay a Chernobyl Chassid and not become a Lubavitcher Chassid. And so, Reb Matla spoke to Reb Hillel, but as you could have figured it out by now, he was not able to change his mind. He said, listen, Rebbe, now that I've tasted Chassidus Chabad, there's nothing I can do. There's nothing that's going to quench my thirst for more Chassidus from the Chabad Rabbeim. What do you want me to do? And so, after hearing this, Reb Matla told him like this. Hillel, hör sich zu. I'm warning you. If you leave your Rebbe, and your Rebbe is your source of chayis, your connection to the Rebbe, right? Like we spoke about many times, the Rebbe is like Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu, like the Rebbe explains to us in the Maimer V'atet Tetzaveh, is a memutza mechaber, is the pipeline, that which connects us to the Rebbe, and is the conduit for all our brachis and hashpayis, and literally our chayis in this world, our life comes through being mekusher to the Rebbe. And in a broader sense, every chassid gets their chayis from their Rebbe. So Reb Matla told Reb Hillel Paritcher, if you're going to cut off from your Rebbe, from your tzaddik, from your source of life, you're going to be like a person that lies on the ground facing the sky. Like the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, right? It's a sign for when someone chas v'shalom passes away, they lay on their back facing the Shemayim. So Reb Matla Chernobyl was telling Reb Hillel, Hillel, I know what you want to do. I know you want to leave me and become a chassid of the Mittler Rebbe. But if you're going to disconnect yourself from me, if you're not going to be mekusher to me, you're disconnecting your chayis and you're going to lay on the ground. It was a metaphor for something not good. Now, Reb Hillel understood that he might chas v'shalom pass away. He was ready to have Mesiras Nefesh, to understand the Likus. And there was nothing he can do about it. He said, I understand. If I have to go on Mesiras Nefesh to become a Lubavitcher Chassid, to learn Chassidus, that's what I'm going to do. And he left his house on foot and right away ran to the next town. And then he began the extremely long journey to Lubavitch. He finally arrived in Lubavitch. and he went into Yechidus to the Mittler Rebbe. And the Mittler Rebbe hinted to him that his shlichus in this world was to illuminate the area around with Chassidus. Now, when Reb Hillel tells the Mittler Rebbe that he's worried for his life, that the Motel Chernobyler told him that if he is going to leave the Chernobyl Chassidus, he's disconnecting his chayis from his Rebbe, something chas v'shalom not good could happen to him, and he could be like a person laying on the ground, face with his face up. The Mittler Rebbe smiled and said, listen, when a person travels, sometimes it happens that the wagon, hits a bump, boop, and it turns over. And the passengers in the wagon end up falling out, and they land with their back on the ground and their face towards the Shemayim. Hearing this Ruach HaKodesh, Reb Hillel's chayis was returned to him. He got so excited. And he said, this is exactly what happened to me on the way here. While I was on my way to Lubavitch, my wagon hit a bump, and I fell over, and I was laying on the ground. My back was on the ground, and my face was facing up. And Rebbe, now you're telling me that this happened to me on my way to become a chassid. So the kapeda from the Matala already came true. The Matala said, I'm going to be on the ground, laying down. That already happened. And Baruch Hashem, I'm alive and well. Now I know I made the right decision by becoming a chassid of the Mittler Rebbe. I want to pause here for a second, Kidalach. I want us to appreciate the beauty of that story for a moment. You see, all of us were born into families of Chassidim, families of Lubavitch Chassidim, families of Shluchim. Did we really work for it? Did we really earn it? Obviously, we know that every Chassid is handpicked. The neshama is not mikra nikra. It's not just willy-nilly. A specific reason why your neshama is a Chassid of this Rebbe and this time in this place. Especially, you have the opportunity to learn in Teimchet Mimim. We know that the Rebbe Rashab handpicked the neshamas that are going to learn in Teimchet Mimim also. It's not a joke. But what, did we really go on Mesiris Nefesh to be Lubavitch Chassidim? Did we give up something from ourselves, some comforts from ourselves to be Lubavitch Chassidim? Or we were just born into it. This is the life. This is the life we were born into, and we're going with the flow. And Hillel Paritcher literally was going to give up his life, his physical life. He was aware of the potential of Chas v'Shalom passing away to go on Mesiris Nefesh Mamish for what? Just to learn another Maimer Chassidus, to learn another Perek Tanya, to be Mekusher to the Rebbe, to understand Elikus. We have an unbelievable opportunity in our life. We're born into a family of Chassidim. Let's not take it for granted. We have the opportunity to learn a Maimer, to learn a Sicha, to do the Rebbe's Heirois. Sometimes it's inconvenient. Sometimes it's uncomfortable. Sometimes we're not in the mood. Sometimes we're tired. Fine, that happens. But we have to give up a little bit from ourselves. When it comes to learning Tanya Baal Peh, I'm not in the mood. It's boring. First of all, it's not boring if you check out the prizes in the MVP store, but that's for the previous episode. I'm not in the mood. Gib up a bissel von sich. A little Mesiris Nefesh we could experience today. It doesn't mean to the extent of Reb Hillel Paritcher, of literally his of giving up his neshama. We don't have to do that. But some of the comforts, to give up a little bit Mesiris Nefesh for the Rebbe Shlichus, for Chassidus. Think about the Chassidim that went all the way out just for this cause, and it gives us the keach and the inspiration to do it ourselves in our own life, in our own little way.